Hey everyone, GM to everyone here, and thanks for being here listening to the future of blockchain itself, which is on Bitcoin, which is of course the mother chain that made all of this happen. And I'm honored to be in this stage with all these amazing builders. Most of them my friends, actually. And for myself, I've been a quick introduction for myself. I've been building in the space since 2016, mainly started in Ethereum. Oh, I'm Naqib, by the way. And I've moved on to mainly into building on Bitcoin. And I've really dived deep into the whole Bitcoin ecosystem and focusing on what's next on Bitcoin. Always excited about what's next on Bitcoin, right? And because of that, I just want you guys to understand that Bitcoin fundamentally was the first DeFi that is out in the space, right? Hands down. Like people talk about DeFi being during the Ethereum side, which is true in terms of the stack, the technology side of things, but Bitcoin itself was the main. And that's why what Elliot mentioned earlier, when he talked about how Bitcoin is going to grow to the next level, this is the time. Imagine now Bitcoin is during the Ethereum 2017, 2018 days, where everybody's building cool stuff and everybody's coming to Bitcoin to build cool stuff. So without further ado, I want everyone here in the panel, maybe starting from yourself, to go around and introduce yourself, what you guys are doing, how you guys are building, and yeah, a quick one.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Great to be in Vietnam again. Every time here, it's always a lot of energy and a lot of, eagerness to learn things. So great to be here. My name is Zhuling Chen. So I'm a co-contributor at Bedrock. Personally, I've been in this space for over 8 years now. Witnessed a lot of changes and waves of experiments in terms of, what can be done on Bitcoin, whether everything should be done on Bitcoin itself, or should we, modularize it. With that idea and also with a lot of experience in terms of doing staking, because even right now, I run a company called RockX, which we have roughly $2 billion of ETH staked and other assets with us. Then we kind of want to bring that liquid staking concept to Bitcoin, because that makes Bitcoin, number one, more fun because it comes with a yield. It also makes it more composable so that you can work on multiple chains, on all kinds of DeFi protocols. So in fact, we've been working with Bitlayer. We're talking actually with Optimex on DeFi integration. But more importantly, we think this is a way of bringing more retails onto Bitcoin, because the fact is Bitcoin has become too expensive. And if you want to just get onto Bitcoin in the ETF way, sure, it's easy, it's compliant, but you're so far away from blockchain itself. You have no access. Actually, you're not touching Bitcoin. You're not touching blockchain at all. So for us, building a LST, a liquid staked token for Bitcoin, and make it DeFi native, and also try to minimize the reliance of custodies. Although right now, you can't really fully avoid it. So that's something that we're trying to work on. Yeah, thank you.
Next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle. I'm the executive director of Stacks Asia Foundation, and a little history of myself. I have been in this industry for well over 6 years, but also from 2021 to the beginning of 2024, I ran our ecosystem fund. So I was actually the largest investor across the industry in Bitcoin-based projects, whether that be on Stacks or other Bitcoin layers as well. And part of our thesis at that time when I was running the fund was that for Bitcoin to be anything more than a store of value, it needed to have that technical stack or architecture above it. And I was very fortunate on the Stack side to be a part of that ecosystem where we were the first to bring programmability and smart contracts. It really helped to drive a lot of the scalability side of what was possible with Bitcoin, and then was able to be supportive and watch the growth of the greater Bitcoin ecosystem as new layers like Bitlayer and others came to market, and see how they were able to take the torch and grow it even further today and introducing things like staking and restaking and new programmability structures as well. So that's who we are. Thanks.
Hi everybody, my name is Kevin, co-founder of Bitlayer. And first of all, thank you for the invitation. And every time I come to Vietnam, I come to the conference in Vietnam, you always felt very impressed by the enthusiasm of the developers and community. It's a great country here. And I joined industry in 16 and 17 and have been several cycles here. And previously, I'm leading the Huobi Exchange blockchain team. We found Bitlayer company in late 2023 and tried to use Big VM tech and build Big VM technology to solve several problems in the infra side of Bitcoin eco, like the bridging problems and the layer 2 problems. And we are also open to work with every collaborators, including Stacks and Bedrock and Optimex in the industry to push forward the DeFi space, DeFi eco of Bitcoin, and to adding more utilities to BTC assets and scaling Bitcoin networks again. And also, so thanks again.
Yep. Morning. My name is Hung. My background was in academic research. I did my research, my PhD, art distributed system, which then becomes decentralized system when Ethereum comes up. I'm with Optimex at the moment. Optimex, we want to build a suite of the use case financial applications for Bitcoin. We take an approach that work with native Bitcoin, so we don't need to go with bridging, we don't need to go with wrapping. So hopefully the way of us doing stuff provide an alternative so that the retail and the institutional player can just onboard and use Bitcoin seamlessly.
Awesome. So let's kick on the first question. Thank you for the questions given by the event organizers. So the first question I have for you guys is, Bitcoin relatively has been focused mainly on being a store value of asset throughout the years, right? However, for the past 12 months, I would say for the past 2 years since 2023, when, we saw the hype of ordinals coming through, and then after that we have L2s coming in, and then, we talk about DeFi. Why is this shift happening? Why is why are people coming to Bitcoin now to build, right? Why is this development surge happening now? Maybe, Carl, you can touch on this.
Yeah, I think the kind of why now moment, I talked a little bit about this in my presentation. I think in that 2022, 2023 era, we started to see things change, right? We saw a lot of what was possible with Ethereum and what was Solana, and when it came to DeFi, what was possible, and digital assets themselves started to take a different form, right? It wasn't just crypto. It was, there's something more here. This could be an asset that's a part of my portfolio as a not just a crypto investor, but also as a traditional investor. There were a lot of macro economic situations that were going on at the time. And also suddenly, to your point, we see the surgence of ordinals. And suddenly the culture, the excitement, the desire to build on Bitcoin was there again. And it hadn't been for many years. So you mix these internal and external factors. Internal being ordinals comes, we've already seen some things tested, but now Bitcoin is fun, Bitcoin is cool, Bitcoin, hey, there's actually something here. And you also started to see the rise very quickly of applications or protocols from EVM. So it was a native transition between what many had been developing in Ethereum to then building on the Bitcoin side. And Bitcoin's market cap, Bitcoin's potential was so much greater, if unlocked, than Ethereum's was at that time, and even longer term. So I think we look at those internal principles of what began to unlock, and externally, said, you started to see investors look for different places to put capital. You saw more venture capital start to kind of enter into this ecosystem. You started to see more demand for an asset like Bitcoin. And then fast forward, we tip into 2024. The Bitcoin ETFs suddenly take. We have the fourth halving. We have all this experimental tech. And again, just to repeat the figure, we come into 2024 with 300 million in Bitcoin TVL. 300 million. That's it. That's some networks' total TVL today. And fast forward, over that entire year, we see $6.5 billion of TVL generated. I think that just speaks volumes of what kind of led to this. And then it was proven out within 2024. So again, internal factors were something like the beginning of NFTs, RWAs, to then the beginning of layers showing the potential, to then Bitcoin being fun and exciting as culture came back with ordinals and NFTs and the like, to all of a sudden institutions proving, yeah, we want to be a part of this in a way that we've only dreamt of or teased about today.
Right. I mean, I kind of agree on that, Carl, because myself in 2023, I built the first ever permissionless launchpad called Odza, and it kind of blew up and grew and became one of the most funnest thing, the most best fun thing people can do on Bitcoin, and it kind of developed a lot of different things. And I think Ordinals itself kind of push it out Bitcoin to be more people, more depth to come and build, and that's why maybe Kevin, based on just on the question, why do you think like you choose to build on Bitcoin? Like, why suddenly the urge to build on Bitcoin for Bitlayer?
Yeah, for myself, actually, I was the reason I joined industry was the reaction after I read the white paper of Bitcoin. That was really an aha moment for myself as a developer, as myself. So this is the reason for the very beginning, and and during 2023, I was also part-time partner for ABCD Capital, and we invest a lot on the Bitcoin ecosystem projects, more than around 6 projects around the space. And I do the DD meeting and IC meeting for this project. And unfortunately, I think most of them are not very that solving the real problem there, and they are trying to ignore the real problem in the space. So we decide to set up a business or set up a company to solve the real problem, like to make the settlement on L1 and follow up the trends of the layer 2 roll up scaling solution in the Ethereum eco for years that have been educated us for years. Yet we are very lucky to find Bitcoin tech. Then we make a great gamble or bet on the very beginning on late 2023, when there was only a white paper for Bitcoin and nothing. People are doubted if it's reliable or feasible at that time. But we think after some modification of the roadmap, we can do that in more than around 16 months or 18 months. And the result come out with we have a good projection, and we launching the mainnet now. And this is the path I joined industry. I joined Bitcoin space, and I very excited. I'm very thankful for being in this space for 3 years. And there's so many great builders like you guys said, that there is still great demands for the users from institutional retail clients. They want to earn yield. They want to do more with their Bitcoin. That's the reason for the passion we still keeping on this space.
Awesome. Move on to the next question, right? So this question goes both to Zhuling and Dao. Like, you guys has been not building much on Bitcoin, mainly on the EVM side of things, and now building on Bitcoin. Like, for myself, when we talk about this question, whether is Bitcoin DeFi is just a fake hype or not, personally for me, building on Bitcoin is not like I built Brotocol and we are running it via stacks, right? And for me, I'm bullish on this Bitcoin DeFi. But for you guys, you guys are building on Ethereum for many, many years. Like, Or do you think, like, so the question is, like, many still see Bitcoin DeFi as a speculative hype. What gives you conviction that this is just more than just a hype? This is a real product that people want in the space. Maybe, Zhuling, you can start first.
I mean, before we talk about whether Bitcoin Fi is a hype, I think the first question we need to ask is whether Bitcoin is just a hype. It might be a hype, but it has been a hype for over more than 10 years now. It's still a hype, and now it has roughly 10 to 20% has already been purchased by institutions, by ETFs. So, if you look at that, the statistics, it's a battle-proofed technology, an asset that has, features that are superior to certain other assets. So I would say that, it has very strong fundamentals. But at the same time, because it's a technology that gets evolved, right? So it's not just a physical asset, it's a technology. Of course, technology always comes with more possibilities. Hence, there should be hypes. Because if there's no hypes, there's no new people to try it out. So I think Bitcoin does have that nice combination of strong fundamentals, but also with, numerous possibilities. Yeah. Then when it goes to DeFi, right now, I would say that, okay, we probably need to look at Bitcoin from two angles. Okay, in DeFi, do we just want to look at Bitcoin as an asset, just like stablecoins or Ethereum itself, which is an asset that you can use in DeFi? Or do you want to make Bitcoin network or its associated technologies as the settlement layer for DeFi technologies? So that means, okay, do you want to use the Bitcoin security as the fundamental layer for DeFi? So I think, this goes down to Bitcoin starts with a very specific use case. Compared to Ethereum, first, being more of a generic world computer. So the evolution of Bitcoin is totally different from Ethereum. Bitcoin is like, okay, I've made a point. I'm a really good digital asset. And can I even broaden up my horizon right now? Can I even lend out my security? Because that has been proven to be the most superior one among all the blockchains. Right, so that's where people start to look at, okay, can I use Bitcoin as an infrastructure for DeFi? I don't have a clear answer to that yet, but I think, this is exactly the point, because right now this is, I think Kyle put it, this is an experimental phase of Bitcoin, because there are so many things you should try out. Yeah, and one more point I want to make is that I don't think the eruption of innovations on Bitcoin in 2023 is is just an accident. In fact, there are people quietly building and researching on Bitcoin for the past 10 years. It's just that the developers behind Bitcoin are so different in nature compared to the ones in Ethereum. Those ones tend to think about the doomsday scenarios. Every 4 years, a group of guys try to think about, what could go wrong on Bitcoin. Because that's the attitude that actually makes you are taking an asset very seriously. You're not just making this as an experiment. So I would actually think that, let me just make a bold statement here. I think Bitcoin Fi is even more serious than Ethereum DeFi at the very beginning. Just not saying that, this is a looking down on Ethereum, but I'm just trying to say that, the way how people approach it is slightly different. Yeah.
Yep.
I know some people are going to hate me, but yeah.
Yeah. So, totally agree on the fact that Bitcoin is not hype. So, let me just draw an analogy. So if you look at Jaws, a musical genre, right? It started out as the counter-cultural. Bitcoin started out as a cypherpunk kind of narratives. But just gradually evolving into a mainstream, and it's there to stay. So we can just see, we can just draw a lot of analogies about that, and we come to a conclusion that Bitcoin could go mainstream and here to stay. And it's not us alone speaking about that. A bunch of banks around the world, Standard Chartered, JP Morgan, so on and so forth, they also arrive at the same conclusion. So number one, Bitcoin is, I don't think it's a hype. I think it started out as somewhat the revolutionary movement, but migrate itself into mainstream. And once it already go mainstream, it's here to stay. Number two, I'm not too much into BTC-Fi versus EVM versus Solana-Fi, so on and so forth. I think that is somewhat nationalist, like American first and forget EU. I'm not going that route. I'm more into globalization. So if you say that you build on Bitcoin and forget Ethereum, then where USDCs and where USDTs and where all of these things going, right? So I'm in personally, I would take a more a neutral approach to just put Bitcoin to work, just enable a lot of use case for Bitcoin. Let's say you have Bitcoin, you want to mortgage it, you want to lock it up, to borrow some fiat, to borrow a house. You cannot do it immediately, but why not borrow USDCs with Bitcoin as collateral? And then Genius Act in the US, so on and so forth, right? You convert USDCs to fiat. There's a bunch of that off-ramp. And then you can use that fiat to buy a house. So then you can see that Bitcoin has some utility right there as a collateral for lending that. So it's all about BTC-Fi. For me, it's all about putting Bitcoin into use. Just let's not just treat it as a speculative asset and hold it for 20 years later. My kids could have like $20 million. I'm not going to that route. I'm going to like put the Bitcoin thing to work. It's assets, put it into work, and it can be worked together with Ethereum. It can work together with fiat. It can work together with anything, so long as it serves humanity.
Nice take from both of you guys. I mean, end of the day, you want to look at it in a way that Bitcoin DeFi, like, is still a new thing. It's still an experimental thing. It's more than beyond hype, I would say. It's people trying to do something, people trying to learn and trying to build something cool using Bitcoin, right? Okay, so comes to the next question. So this is to all of you guys. Hope you guys keep your answers short, right? Like, Bitcoin over the years has known to be a non-programmable chain. It's a chain where nobody thought they can build anything. Even though Satoshi, he created some opcodes and everything, where people are now starting to find these opcodes, like OpsLTV, you can time lock natively on Bitcoin and stuff like that. And then because of how it was, people doesn't build. But now, the question is like, we now have like BitVMs, ZK proofs, BRC20s, Meta protocols, LKs, whatsoever, right? Like, if you had to bet on just one primitive unlocking Bitcoin DeFi future, what will that be, and what does it like entails to being true to the Bitcoin ethos? Like, if you understand Bitcoin ethos, Satoshi kind of in what people said, Bitcoin is there for people to use and spend and send and transfer, right? He never really, have Bitcoin as a way to build it or build dApps on it, because this is Maxi talking. So maybe we can start with you. What do you think about this question? Do you want me to repeat the question?
I can take that. So I'm always holding the view that I prefer modularization to unlock the potential for Bitcoin. So what that means is that I envision a world where, most of the use cases or applications are separated or independent from Bitcoin chain itself. So let Bitcoin chain itself as, just to safeguard Bitcoin as an asset, to make sure it's secure, it is trustless. So in this way, you have more of a compartmentation of risk control, and also Bitcoin remains as beautiful as it is. However, in order to make that whole thing work, then you need to have a link or a technology that allows all the other modularized applications to leverage on Bitcoin security, or at least have a communication with Bitcoin technology itself. So any technology that in research right now helps to serve that purpose is something that I pay a lot of attention to.
And I'll just add on to a few keywords that you utilized, and that's security. To me, it's not necessarily what happens or doesn't happen at the Bitcoin L1. Modularity, Bitcoin layers, trust minimized transactions. It's all wonderful. To me, it's actually what happens above that. It's about the security layer and the security methodology and the security implementation of the applications that people are using or spending or engaging with their Bitcoin. That those have to be secure. Security has to be the number one top principle in all of those applications, or everything that we're talking about, payments to transactions to yields to DeFi. None of it matters, because if the applications you're doing that in don't have security as primary number one, then users aren't going to trust it. And not just everyday users, not just us here on stage, but also institutions. And once that happens, then we've got bigger problems. So at the end of the day, security is number one, and we get one shot at making all of that happen. So for me, it's all about the security on the protocols and the applications above the L1 that's going to make this really go and thrive above and beyond.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to add more information about from my part. And my conclusion is from the nature of Bitcoin and versus the demands of the user, we think BitVM Tech is the best choice for now. Because it has great advantages, and I will give several points to support this. The Bitcoin network will stay as a payment system maybe forever, and we won't never adopt a BVM in its layer one. And as the users want to do more with the Bitcoin, as we all agreed. So there's a conflict here. The solutions we can find for now, I think is the best is a BitVM, because it follow the idea of modular blockchain that's on layer one, responsible for the decentralization and security, and layer two is responsible for the performance and borrow the security from L1. This is the architecture we have been educated for years in the space. And BitVM actually is an OP equivalent to the optimistic rollup for Bitcoin, and it's feasible without any protocol change, and it have the advantage in the trust assumption, which will turn the TFN trust assumption to one-of-one trust assumption, which means that you only need to trust one validator that is honest. The whole system can work. And furthermore, this is the reason that we think BitVM, we choose BitVM from the very beginning to conclude as BitVM have the great advantage that can solve conflicts between the Bitcoin natures and the user's demand. So yeah, this is the reason.
Yep. So I think there's no single best approach. I think each approach would have their own pros and cons, and I think all roads would eventually lead to Rome. So long as each of the individual approach, when they go and execute that, be aware of the true trade-off. Don't overlook the assumption. Don't overlook the trade-off. Then, so long as we guarantee that, I think any of these the GK proof, native staking, each of them could be like beneficial for the Bitcoin development at the end.
See, that's beautiful, right? Because eventually, like what he said, all roads leads to Bitcoin. Because eventually, we need to understand that Bitcoin was the start, was the alpha, and probably going to be the omega of in the space. Right? It's going to take control of what's happening in the future with all the things that's happening in the institution level, in the country level as well. So I think we are short on time for all the other questions. So I have a last question. The last question is always going to be the typical fast forward 5 years from now question, right? So why do you think Bitcoin DeFi will actually look like 5 years from now if it succeeds, let's say, today or tomorrow? And how do you think it will be different, let's say, from Ethereum DeFi, Solana DeFi, so on and so forth? Like, do you feel, personally, for me, I feel Bitcoin DeFi has a role more on the institutional level side of things because of how it's being adopted in this manner. It's Solana DeFi, Ethereum DeFi, I would say it's like an Android store where people build a lot of fun stuff. And Solana DeFi is more like a, fun, super legend playground. So yeah, on your thoughts, one of you, everyone is go give your own comments on this part.
Okay, so I would think that in 5 years, Bitcoin DeFi is gonna be more diverse and also still gonna be fragmented compared to the Ethereum DeFi. Why is that so? Is because for Bitcoin, there's no foundation that kind of says, hey, this is our 5-year roadmap. Let's all work towards that. For Bitcoin, you have different schools of thoughts. You have people following different philosophy. So there will be people strictly just use, maybe BRC20 because they think, okay, I only trust whatever happens on Bitcoin. There will be people saying, okay, let's work on BitVM or ZK rollup. So just because there's no one school of thoughts for Bitcoin, this is gonna make Bitcoin, more diverse, and we're gonna see just different types of use case, different types of culture coexisting on Bitcoin, and that gets me super excited.
I would agree, and I think I'll make a conservative prediction that in the next 2 years, Bitcoin DeFi actually flips Ethereum in terms of TVL. I think that figure I presented in my discussion, about just under $500 billion, which is about 18% of today's market cap. I think we flipped that in 2 years. I think in a year from now, I'm hopeful that we begin to push towards 5%. And then in 5 years, I agree. I think, you've got a more diverse ecosystem for DeFi. You've got really options for anybody and everybody to further participate in Bitcoin. Today, Bitcoin is now at a point where anybody, no matter where you live, your knowledge, your resources, your technical know-how, you have a way to participate in it. And I look in the future of the next 5 years, not only do we have those flippenings, and not only do we have a rival maybe to the stablecoin market, as I noted comments earlier as well, but also that not only do you have access, but you also have the ability to be productive with that asset in more ways than you have ever imagined today.
Yeah, I like the predictions. And I like to make several points about predictions and the supporting logic. And first of all, there's the environments of Bitcoin space or DeFi is really different from other ecos like Ethereum and Solana. And so we need to make different approach on Bitcoin space. And the second point will be the prediction I make. And to explain this idea is Bitcoin is not have no functionality built in for complicated or sophisticated programming. So the infra comes very important. So we need to fix the infra problem at the very beginning, and hopefully we can have better solution in this 1 or 2 years. And second is Bitcoin space. We should focus on the specific use cases rather than the overall general ecosystem. So the yielding products, the lending products, and which will be the best use cases for the clients that help them to put specific small amount percentage of the Bitcoin on chain and gradually grow. That's the lesson we learned through the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, look, end of the day, it's very similar in terms of all the technological tree that we see back then. It was big data, and then there was IoT, and then AI a little bit, and then blockchain and now AI again, right? I mean, the goal is to be what Google do, right? People go to Google, they don't ask how it works, they just do it, right? People, when back then, when IoT were to happen, they have all these intra-connected activities happening in the house. People don't know how to do it. People don't care how it's done. People just care whether it works. Right? Same for blockchain. End of the day, we want people to use blockchain without people knowing they're using blockchain. And to end this off, I would like to kind of share that Bitcoin right now is on its peak of innovation, right? And all of you here listening to our panel, all I want to say is, if you are a builder, come build on Bitcoin, right? If you are an Ethereum builder, Solana builder, have fun there. But at the end of the day, come back to the mother chain and build something and grow the mother chain. Because I'm not a Bitcoin maxi, but I believe that Bitcoin is the key to unlock the full potential of how blockchain is supposed to be, which will then ripple down to every other chain as well. And thank you very much for this panel. Thank you, everyone. Thank you guys for listening, and have a good day. Thank you.